I've tried countless times to put into words the adventures we go on and the situations we get into, and I just can't seem to do it. So we're going to show you. We're an international auction company specializing in all things vintage power, antique tractors, vintage cars and trucks, motorcycles, signs, and memorabilia. We're not just auctioneers, we're collectors with a passion for every item we sell. But it's not just about the items, it's also about the people. We get to experience, share, and tell the history of our past. Every day is different in the auction industry. You just never know what's coming next.
This time, we take a look at some massive pieces of American history and get a family collection in Kansas ready for auction. If you're wanting to see sleek, fast sports cars, you're watching the wrong show. These early tractors are the same as the supercars of the collector car world. Just like those high-tech cars, these early tractors sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Sure, they don't have the speed, but they make up for it with their history and their unique designs. We're in the small town of Acalaca, Montana, where the Aumann team will catalog a collection of early tractors that could bring big dollars. This impressive collection belongs to Harlan Mailing, a mechanic by trade and farms thousands of acres in Acalaca. Harlan has owned many of these tractors for decades, so seeing them go will be bittersweet. The buildings are jam-packed with pieces of history. Some have been in these buildings for more than a decade, and today they all must come out.
This shed is extremely tight, so we're going to actually pull out some of the larger prairie tractors that are in the center here. That way we can get to some of these smaller tractors and either pull some of those out, because we've got to get pictures and some we'll get video on, so we'd like to get the big ones out that way to make up a little room here because it's so tight. So and we want to have some video of them running and kind of show them off a little bit. So we're gonna start working on some of these, filling up, making sure everything's oiled, greased, fresh gas, so we can get them running and run them around a little bit and make some room up here.
Starting a 100-year-old tractor isn't just like turning a key. These heavy antiques must be lubricated, filled with water, and fueled up. It is a daunting task to get this many tractors running. Luckily, there's a team of passionate collectors here who have decades of experience working on tractors like these. The team includes Dutch, an early engine and vintage power collector from California, Kevin and Benjamin, a father and son who own several early tractors in North Dakota, Mac, an antique tractor and engine collector from Arizona, Dean, a collector and early tractor mechanic from North Dakota, and Mitch, a magneto specialist and antique tractor collector from Michigan. It's still early, but there's a lot of tractors to move and not much time to do it. This Rumley Model S is the first to go. It needs to be moved so all the other tractors can come out. Usually, this tractor starts right up, but today it's got an audience and doesn't feel like performing.
I'll go get that 620.
The Rumley wasn't cooperating, so they're giving the old two-cylinder a turn.
You want to make some kind of smart-ass comment about having to belt it up to a deer?
Gotta have a good pony motor somewhere.
Brian Holst is new to the Aumann team. Brian worked for 19 years with the John Deere Company as their historical equipment manager. His job included preserving and acquiring historically significant items for the company. Brian has decades of experience with the John Deere brand and shares that passion in the items he collects. When we come back, we'll find out what Alex is up to in Kansas and see if the John Deere has the power to pull over the Rumley. The Rumley didn't want to start by hand, so they're belting it up to the John Deere 620. The 620 is rated at 49 horsepower on the belt, while the Rumley is rated at 60. Despite the size difference, this deer should have no trouble turning it over. Spinning these old tractors with a belt is sometimes the quickest way to troubleshoot a problem. Nothing is standard on these early tractors. This Model S is part of Rumley's line of lightweight tractors released in 1924. Along with being lightweight, they also included some radical design changes. The main difference was replacing the heavy channel iron frame with a pressed steel unibody frame. Rumley released 8 different lightweight models, ranging from 25 to 60 belt horsepower. Production of the lightweights continued until about 1930, when the company released the Rumley 6. The Rumley 6 was the end of the oil-cooled engines. It has a vertical, 6-cylinder water-cooled engine capable of doing 48 horsepower. The Rumley 6 was the last tractor model Rumley built before being bought out by the Allis-Chalmers Company in 1931. The Rumley still won't start. The carburetor and ignition systems are different on almost every tractor. That makes it difficult to know all the steps to get one running. But that's why there's a team here with a wealth of combined knowledge to get these tractors running.
Well, here, hook up the plugs and ground them against the block and we'll turn it over.
Yep.
They decide to check the spark again before going any further.
Yep. Yep. Good.
The spark is good, so the plugs go back in.
Not getting fuel somehow.
I don't know if you want to spin it that way or if you want to give it a few turns.
Dean gives it a squirt of gas, checks the choke, and it's ready to go.
All right.
Ready?
Yep. Yeah, when that's about 10 o'clock is when it's going to ignite. Right there.
The engine runs on the small amount of fuel Dean put in it, but that's it.
It's running on fine. It's not atomizing right.
Well, see, the Rumley carburetors are made where the water is lower and they won't suck unless it's a hard pull.
Lower in the bowl.
Yep, the float level is lower in the bowl,
but the
so it won't pull it up.
Above the fuel.
Yep. Where the,
So we should put these lines across.
yeah.
Dean and Kevin decide part of the reason it won't run is because of the location of the gas lines.
We're going to move the fuel line from the water side to the kerosene side. Because we're trying to run on the water side and that doesn't work right in this carburetor. Rumleys are bad for that. If you don't run them off the gas side, they don't atomize right going into the engine.
So really, this is set up if you're running it hard on kerosene, right?
Yeah.
So your engine's already warmed up.
Then you inject water into it to prevent the pre-ignition.
Are we going to have enough line this
Yeah, I think so. With a couple guys, if somebody can come over here and help pull it over here, I think we'll make it.
One of the benefits of the oil-pull Rumley was its ability to cool with oil. Cooling with oil instead of water made the engines run hotter and easily burn kerosene, which was a cheaper fuel. Cooling with oil also meant you never had to worry about freezing water, which could damage the engine. Many of these tractors were used up into the 1950s. The oil-pull Rumleys were reliable and durable, which is probably why so many of them survive today.
No, it's easy up here, Kevin. The big lines are easy up here.
Dean and Brian switch out the fuel lines, and with a few other adjustments, they're ready to try again. Switching the fuel lines was just what the engine needed. This tractor is rated at 60 horsepower and has an oil-cooled 2-cylinder kerosene engine. These Rumley Model S's were built from 1924 until 1929, with only 514 built. This tractor sold on the auction for $48,300 US. With the Rumley out of the way, it's time for the next tractor. We know we're showing too many steel wheel tractors, so to keep the hate mail to a minimum, here's an Oliver GM diesel. Alex is back with a team to catalog the Lit Key collection. They only have a few days to get items out, photograph them, and write descriptions for the auction. The Lit Key family has been busy, moving and sorting, but there's still plenty of work to be done. There's hundreds of cast iron seats to catalog, and plenty of heavy iron to move.
I am going through the cast iron seats, and we're picking out everything to put on for the online catalog for the auction. We got quite the selection here, so we've got plenty to choose from. A lot of name seats. Of course, got all the normal ones, but a lot of rare seats here. Kind of a nice original condition.
Alex selects some of the best cast iron seats for the auction. The right seat could bring hundreds of dollars. While Alex works with the cast iron seats, Brian and Glenn are ready to move the heavy wooden thrashers. These thrashers haven't moved in decades.
Hey Alex. Yeah. How do you want these thrashers out there? Great distance apart.
They're not staying out for 2 months, you know that.
Right.
So it's a matter of taking them out and getting a good picture of them.
You want them lined up out there? Is that so we see them all and then
It may make for a nice shot.
it really would.
Just go where.
Go out there in the grass area.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Be nice to line them up smallest to the largest.
So you thinking the picture would be from the largest to smallest or smallest to largest? So then you go
Largest on the far end, smallest.
Okay.
These early thrashing machines are the combines of the era. They were belt operated and pulled from farm to farm with either animal or mechanical power. It's hard to find wooden thrashers in good condition like these. These thrashers have plenty of historical value, but due to their size and wooden structure, they don't have a wide market.
1 down, 3 to go. The easy one was first.
Looks can be deceiving on these wooden thrashers, making it hard to tell the condition of their wooden structures. This thrasher has sunk into the ground and will need a bit of help to get it rolling.
We're reinforcing just in the event it's stuck too hard that we don't pull the drawbar or the tongue out from underneath it.
Brian and Glenn must be careful as they pull these thrashers out. One wrong move and it could mean catastrophe. The forecast is calling for rain, so they'll need to work quickly. These machines can't afford to get wet. Even the smallest amount of water could mean irreplaceable damage. If getting them out was a challenge, putting them back in the building could be more difficult. Hopefully these thrashers will find new buyers that will preserve and demonstrate them for future generations. Back in the shed, Alex is still selecting cast iron seats. Every seat will need to be photographed and have a written description. There's hundreds of cast iron seats here, so the team has their work cut out for them. We're already getting emails that we're showing too many steel wheel tractors. So here's a John Deere Model R. Back in Montana, Brian fills water tanks. The Minneapolis is up and running. Brian fills water tanks. The Altman Taylor is out the door. And Brian fills water tanks. Meanwhile, the team works to get the 2040 case ready to run. Harlan hasn't had time to run this tractor since its restoration. The tractor has already been lubricated, filled with water, and topped off with gasoline. A little priming gas, and she's ready to start.
This is the money shot.
Dutch thinks the engine isn't getting enough fuel, so he decides to take the carburetor off and have a look. The J.I. Case Company used this tractor engine to make a portable stationary engine. The engine has a few minor changes and is mounted on a factory cart. Only a few of these were built, and only one is still known to exist. It's owned by John Tissey in North Dakota. Dutch and Kevin think the carburetor looks good, but just needs a few adjustments. This tractor needs a few more hours to really get it sounding good. Hopefully the new owner will have time to tinker with the engine. With the 2040 out the door, some of the crew continue to get tractors out, while others work to get them running. Brian and Alex are in the pole barn, moving and cleaning tractors, cataloging, and taking photographs for the auction. forecast calls for rain and high winds up to 40 miles an hour that could cause a power outage to the entire town. There's still a mountain of work to be done and just a few days to do it in. In Kansas, things are progressing nicely. Shannon and Callie continue to catalog, Rick and Brian move tractors, and Alex talks on his phone. The team is on pace to get everything done before they leave in 2 days. Today's goal is to finish cataloging the cast iron seats and get a big chunk of the memorabilia cataloged. The team is hoping for nice weather, but there's a chance of rain in the forecast, so Brian and Alex are trying to catalog some of the tractors before they quit for the night. Next time, we're back in Kansas with a 20 horsepower Emerson, and out in California lifting some unmovable tractors. Plus, some of this.
Yeah.
Oh!
That's all right, isn't it?
Man! Man, you got them in here now. Looky here.
Until then, here's some rubber-tired tractors.